Okay, welcome very much. So, I have a honors military history exam in roughly, I'm gonna turn on the brightness. That's better. Um, I think 2 weeks? No, less than 2 weeks. February 17th. I have my biology exam and I have my military history exam, both on the same day. So, I started my studying now, and because most of my friends are busy, and yeah, I am going to explain military history, at least the first unit, chapter 8, because this is a history 1302 course, but I'm insane. I decided to take an honors course because I wanted to look really good on my transcript. I'm gonna try something real quickly. I want to try something. I've been thinking about how I could do this ever since I got this idea for this video. Hold on. YouTube gave me an ad. Okay. Okay, so chapter 8.1. We're gonna start out with military post Civil War. Big thing about this, let me get my timeline as well. Army, Navy, demobilized. There is this trend that after wars or stuff like that, military shrinks, okay? And pre-war military, they expand. During this era, there is a minimal threat from Europe due to just relations being balanced out and the geography pretty much preventing them from. This is a little too loud. Basically, it's geography and balance of power that is keeping the U.S. like, okay, we're chill with Europe right now. We can downsize a little bit. And next up, we got continentalism. That's something else that's going on during this post-Civil War era. This is basic. There's really just define it. Agree-sized policies that are in favor between the states within a continent. That's what I looked at when I found online that I tried to find a definition for this. But to really sum it up, during this time, the Navy is suppressing piracy and fostering trade to protecting the lives of distant patrols in the West Indies. These distant stations use wooden sailing ships because, fun fact, they cut back on coal because it's expensive and they went back to more wind-run ships because it's free. The wind is free, which I thought was like the coolest thing ever. Okay, this is really working. This also protected trade and American welfare of citizens of foreign countries alongside sailors. Uh, I just now noticed this. Okay, we keep going. Anyways, I also found out that forts, like for example, Fort Worth in Texas, they're called that because these forts would be first constructed and would attract a population because these salespeople would take advantage of like the military fortresses and be like, hey, I'm gonna make a shop so that all the military people come to my store. And then people got the same idea, and then it just became a massive community. So now we have like Fort Lauderdale, Fort Worth, like things like that's why we have cities that are called forts. That was cool too. Native policy. I know it's Indian policy, but I feel like it just feels wrong saying that because they weren't Indians. They were Native Americans. They're not. It wasn't India. Stop calling them the Indians. Um. So these treaties were determined by basically how I like to describe this. The treaties put on Native Americans were all dependent on whether or not what these treaties regarding would benefit or not benefit the white men. Basically, that's what I found out. Okay, thank you, Chappell Roan. Lover. Anyways, these treaties were undermined by mineral strikes in the Black Hills. This is my biggest example for these policies being basically just loosely, you know, it was strictly enforced on natives, but in regards to like the white population, they could be like, "You gotta go. There's gold in these fields." Like that's what happened to Black Hills. In the Black Hills, they sent the Sioux Native Americans. I'm pretty sure, up there because they're like, "Oh, this is like the Badlands. Nobody's gonna want to touch this land. Like we want the natives out of the good land, so we're gonna put them in the Black Hills. And the Sioux Native Americans were like, okay, that's chill. We see this as like a religious site. We're fine with this. Well, they find gold in the Black Hills, and guess what? That's the United States now, not the Sioux Native Americans. Another thing with Native policy that happened, homestead law, railroad construction. This inflates westward expansion. Not good. Not good for the natives. Not good for the buffalo population. With railroad construction. We'll get to reconstruction later. Not good. You've heard, I don't know if they would like have like these like parties where they would shoot the buffalo from the train. It's so, I've seen the photos. It makes me so bonkers angry because how are you so ah! I have so much respect and reverence for the earth. It makes me so mad. Um, there was also the concentration policy, basically just trying to put as many Native Americans on a small piece of land as possible. Like this, just overcrowd a bunch of Native Americans on the smallest piece of land. Because that was just the thing to do back in the day for some reason. I hate that. And then another thing, they divided responsibilities between the Bureau of Native Affairs and the War Department. Funny. Okay. Funny how that works. That led to a lot of corruption, by the way. Okay. Continuing on the railroad construction during this time, the government gave companies incentives to build railroads. So this is like the land grant system. Companies get sectioned out pieces of land to build the railroad, and this provides like an in-customer services for transferring goods across America, because these sections would be nearby settlements that were on these tracks. So they'd be like, okay, this is nearby. We're gonna use this stop at the railroad to export our goods. Okay, so like there were built-in customers basically, which I thought was really cool. I already said this again. Disrupts native and buffalo migration. Buffalo Bill is a good example of this because of how many fucking buffalo he killed. Hate that guy. Okay, now we're on to the Indian Wars. That's just what it was called here. Hostile environment, topography, drought, cold, vastness. That's what made it a hostile environment. Number of small troops. Okay, so here are the strengths that the Native Americans had on the American soldiers. Native Americans had mobility, advantage on guerrilla warfare, and better horsemen. They just had the better horsemen. But with the soldiers, though, the American soldiers, they had more discipline, organization. They could do winter campaigns, unlike Native Americans. And they had Native scouts, which gave them an advantage over Native Americans because they already know what's up. I mentioned this in my last video. We got the Custer incident. I'm not going to go on this as much because I kind of explained it in my last video, but oh, this was really funny to me. And I really wonder if Custer by Slipknot was inspired by this incident, because if it is, that's crazy, because I always wondered what the title of that came from. I've been listening to a lot of Slipknot lately, actually. Love them. Tattered and torn, my beloved. Yeah, we're gonna skip Custer incident to save myself some time. Battle of Wounded Knee. I always say Battle of Wounded Knee because this was just a straight massacre. I have like a note here, like I have a note like, holy shit, this sucked. Basically what happens is like context for everything. The reservation where this took place in the Lakota reservation, and I think that says South Dakota. The reservation was dependent on government handouts and had corruption in their system because somebody was selling all of the food being given to this reservation. The leaders, the white leaders. Yeah. So the U.S. Army and the Department of Interior started sending. They also started sending Native children to boarding schools to anglicize them. That really sucked to learn about. And during this time as well, there was a religious revival among Native Americans where they had a prophecy that a leader would return and turn the land back into how it was pre-colonialization, basically. And to bring about this time, they basically were like they invented this thing called the ghost dance. And during this dance, they would wear like white robes, and settlers from the outside, from an outside perspective, would see it as like, oh, they look like ghosts, so they're gonna call it the ghost dance. They're gonna call it the ghost dance. Um, Another thing too, the Seventh Cavalry, which was from the Custer incident, they suffered a big loss there, and their egos were hurt, and they're on their little tushies, and we're like, okay, we've seen as losers. We gotta like redeem ourselves in some sort of way. So like it's the Seventh Cavalry and Colonel James Forsyth, who was a part of this incident. I hate both of these groups. And they wanted a promotion. They wanted to make their egos feel better because they're stupid. Um, so basically, they were looking for some big fight. They were trying to make this big fight over they had to move the Lakota natives. Let me see for why. They, oh yeah, they were, no, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. The natives were trying to leave the reservation. So Forsyth follows them and attempts to disarm them, demands their surrender, when secretly Forsyth wants them to resist so that he can go bang, 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 I won. Um, so he has soldiers come and search the women, and of course, men being men, most men, um, not all. I have to remind myself, not all men are like that, but most of it's always men. Who are being really handsy with the Native American women, so their husbands were like, and Forsyth was like, "You're gonna die." So a massacre begins from Forsyth's order, basically, and that was devastating to learn about. This class makes me really angry. um, so now we're gonna get to the. Oh my god, again! Oh my god, I guess I got water on this at some point. So that happened. That's basically what's up with Native American policy. The wars. Now we're going to talk about the U.S. Army in the South. The U.S. Army in the South, they were there to enforce Reconstruction, work under the Freedmen's Bureau, which helped uplift African Americans who were recently freed from slavery, because there were still people like the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow laws, and basically another form of slavery, where like it was basically a trick sort of, um, that kind of kept them a bit stagnant, which, and also at this time the Republican Party was mostly represented, I think, in Congress, so it was congressional Reconstruction mainly, and they're just trying to work up the South again from the Civil War because they literally seceded from the nation. And then over here we have carpetbaggers versus scallywags. I wrote down those definitions because I always had a hard time telling them apart. Carpetbaggers, white trash. Basically, that's how my professor put it. They're white trash. They came from the north, and they're called carpetbaggers because they brought everything that they owned in one little carpet bag. And then we have scallywags. These are native southern people that turned Republican for personal gain. So U.S. Army and labor disputes. This was first used in the 1877 railroad strike. This is crazy. So with the railroad strike, the railroad strike occurred because there was job cuts and job and pay cuts on these laborers and these workers in the railroad companies. And this was because of economic depression and the panic of 1873, I'm pretty sure. And they went on strike by making the tracks unable to move trains. And because of this, the railroad companies is like, hey, president, we gotta like send the army. We gotta get them in line. And then the state militias, they get called up too. Here's something funny that I found out. The military at this point responded on an ad hoc basis. I heard that initially. I was like, what is an ad hoc? Ad hoc, basically, in my terms, is the fuck around and find out strategy. They were pretty much just going by just doing what had to be done, man. Like, they were just, no strategy. Just go. Just vote. Just vote. Um, um, the railroad companies were losing money. Why? So basically, what happens? The army is trying to like get everything back together and trying to keep like exports going and imports going with the railroad system. The militia just comes in there and kills people. Literally, the militia is what kills a lot of people, which was crazy. I can't believe my notes are messed up from the water. Yeah, the state militia. This was Pittsburgh versus Pennsylvania. My professor made a good comparison as to how like it's like you gotta think about when I think it's the Hawks and whatever during this like it's football stuff. You know how Pennsylvania can and Pittsburgh can get the rivalry between Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. I mean, no. Yes, Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. Whatever, Philadelphia maybe. I think it's Philadelphia. And all I know is that it's something about the Super Bowl that he made, and it made a lot of sense. So basically, they go crazy. Um, okay, now we're gonna move on to new workers are hired and order is restored by the army, basically. Um, beginning of the new navy, imperialism time, baby. We want more land. Um, this is an era of imperialism, manifest destiny, overseas markets, reconstruction coming to an end, expansion to the west even more, social Darwinism. This is when America is in her British era, like extremely British era, like hypocrite era. Okay, um, modernized quicker than the army. There's new technology. There's a steel hoe compartmentalization. I remember learning about that because I had a weird Titanic phase that I was like 8 years old, and I learned that like everything failed because the compartmentalization failed or something. There's also breech-loading rifled guns, slow burning power, and there's a greater velocity on the boats. Um, Imperialism. Expanding of territory beyond already set borders manifests necessity. It is the idea that it's God's will to spread democracy and capitalism across the world. A lot of wars have been fought over this exact same reason, that because people think that they're right, but it's all subjective. You're not that special. It's so hard for people not to understand that. Reconstruction ends basically because the worry of domestic issues are pretty much relieved. All is kind of settling from the Civil War, so people are like, okay, let's go conquer the world again. Social Darwinism defined. This was really interesting to learn about. It's based on Darwin's biological theory. I should know this because I'm a psychology major. It's the idea that smart, powerful people are at the top and deserve to stay there and lead slash rule the lower and less smart class, aka people of color for some reason. If you're all white, you are smart. If you have darker skin, you're not smart. Basically, is what they're saying. I'm not saying that. Basically this social Darwinism thing was made like it was projected onto Puerto Ricans, Hawaiians, and Cubans, like they were seen as the more ignorant ones. My boyfriend's Puerto Rican, motherfucker. Sorry. I don't like old people. Ships were created to mimic how Europe divided Africa. So America wanted to emulate what Europe was doing to Africa and how it divided it into like a bunch of little nations. They were wanting to do that with other countries as well. There are new ships that are made. The A, B, C, and D ships is Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, and the Dolphin ships. Atlanta, Boston, Chicago. I'm pretty sure those were just. Oh my god, my notes are so messed up. Battleships versus carrier. I can't read that. I don't know what that means. I know that the Dolphin ships, though, it was used to carry messages between boats because of the absence of radios at the time. So basically, it was like a messenger ship, which is probably why it was called the Dolphin, because it swims. Okay, now we're on to new Navy policy. We got Benjamin Tracy. He was a spearhead for the new Navy policy. He was an imperialist and believed in the doctrine of command. The doctrine of command is the idea of we need to defeat the enemy in the water before they reach U.S. shore. So he was in support of mid-ocean fighting. And then the doctrine of command results in the creation of battleships in 1890. Congress authorized, by the way. Here's the part where we get into the military-industrial complex. I think that's what it's called. Coastal defenses. Okay, so the government is giving the military money to make new technology for war, whatever you need. And then the military wants to spend more money on, advancements. And basically, to get these advancements, you got to go in the industry. You got to get the industries to divide the militaries once. So the government funds more and more to appease their constituents. Because think about it. Whenever I pieced everything together, I was like, whoa. Military funds, let's say DuPont, Carnegie, things like that. More money goes into those businesses. Someone in that kind of area wants to run for government. They're gonna get more money to run for government. It's gonna look. They're all gonna. It's like a I scratch your back, I'm gonna scratch yours kind of situation. That's the best I can describe it. My leg hurts. Economy loves war. This is when I always had heard the statement economy loves war, but I never really understood it until I learned about this chapter. Um, because they all work hand in hand with each other. They're all scratching each other's backs. Okay? Now move on to military theory. During peace, U.S. prepares for the next war. Possible foes are too strong for the U.S. to have a small military defense. There are a bunch of reforms in education, basically trying to emulate at this point when this is happening in the late 1800s, the Germany, for example, they've had military schools are much more advanced. They were 100 years ahead of the U.S. at this point because they already had graduate style programs. The U.S. didn't have graduate style programs until the 1900s, I think, for military, which is crazy. Hey, I just got my bachelor's. I'm gonna go be a colonel. Anyways, did I miss anything? Oh, another thing too. There's a bunch of social state. This is my last part. Social changes in service. 50% of people who were in the military were foreigners, and they had a 30. And this military had a 33% desertion rate. This caused desire for American-born recruits. Instead of foreigners who were predominantly Irish, because once they got they got what they needed, or they learned enough English while in the military, they're like, okay, I'm out. That's basically how my professor described it. Another thing too that happened for military service is that there was a mandatory retirement age at 64 because they were 80-year-old colonels or generals that couldn't get out of bed in the morning. They're like, you gotta go, because these people, they stayed in the military so late in their age because that's how they got their money. There wasn't a fund for them. If they were to quit the military, they would not get their paycheck. So it was kind of like a till I die sort of deal. They also promotion exams required. Something that I learned: if somebody dies, you get a promotion. Before these promotion exams, if somebody died, you got a promotion. That's crazy. And then there are efficiency reports that started in the mid 1890s, and then regulars and National Guard. I don't know what that means. I'll have to look that up later. But that's basically it. Let's hope to God that I pass this exam. I mean, I'm starting almost 2 weeks ahead, but we'll see. Okay. All right. Thank you for listening to me. Bye.